Is it okay if I ask a few office questions?
Of course.
You have a very specific character and voice for your character on the show. And to your credit, like, I think that that's no easy feat, what you created. Was that the first iteration of that character, or did you kind of put it together and discover who this guy was through the auditions and early on in the process?
Number one, thank you. Very nice. Number two, it was a process. I mean, look, trying to make it not as long an answer as it could be, the show started, spoiler alert, with a show in Britain with Ricky Gervais called The Office. And there were characters that were the US version, our The Office, had characters that came from there. And Keith was the character that Kevin came from. Creative, both with a K. I don't know if you figured that one out. And so that's really where it started. But the idea was here, our version, and ultimately what proved to be true, we did 206 episodes and they did 12. The whole idea was they wanted to keep it going. They knew that there were going to be more storylines for more characters and journeys and arcs over what hopefully would be a long time. So that was planned. But really for me, for Kevin, the developing the character with the writers and truly the writers beginning to sort of fall in love. Like the show is looking for archetypes, right? Like everyone sort of serves a purpose, and the puzzle begins to be put together in the ensemble and how everybody works together. So the sort of, let's just call it childlike glee and joy, that sort of aspect of Kevin, the writers really fell in love with and started to write to. So I have a really nerdy, so now we got emotional, now we'll get a little nerdy. Justification for this, right? I think it's brilliant, Josh. The character of Kevin began much more deadpan is such a lame word, but and then began to gradually expand into his childlike joy, let's call it that. So my character justification as the character evolved because of the stories that the writers were writing was that Kevin never changed, of course, but there was a documentary crew and 20 people around filming him, and he was very nervous about the cameras. So as the show kept progressing and he started maybe having a beer with the camera guy or hanging out and having a laugh, he became more comfortable. So more of his true natural personality came out. Boom, nailed it. That's
Wow.
that's
Wow.
my like nerdy actor justification for how he changed. But really, right, the writers just continue to expand and slightly changed what we had. I mean, the character description for him in the casting, because my manager and I at the time joked about it, was the only thing spectacular about Kevin is that he is spectacularly unspectacular. And I think, Kevin starts making a few basketball shots. You find out he won a World Series of Poker bracelet. He makes the greatest chili in all the land. Like, there's a lot spectacular about this ordinary guy, which ultimately I think is what the show is about. So that's a long-ish answer to your question.
Where did the voice come from? Did they just say, try a voice?
No, that's just me. I mean, I think that why the ensemble worked so well was the diversity from which the diversity of experiences that we all had, right? So like, I'll just name a few people. It's like Rainn Wilson and myself came from theater. You have Carell and Angela Kinsey and Oscar Nunez that came from improv. You have Craig Robinson and BJ Novak who came from stand-up. And so part of, I think, and I don't think this was necessarily even intentional, but that history there and different ways of working ultimately, I think, made us learned from each other, but also just gave, as opposed to everybody being an improv. I feel like some shows where everybody is improv, you feel it. It's like you feel that improv sort of happening. This I feel like was different. And so, yeah, for me, I came from theater. It was about creating a character. How does the character sound? How does he walk? What's his physicality? I mean, people always talk to me about the voice, which is because it's very obvious, but I had a whole physical thing going on, which, again, was sort of a part of the character, which what was literally in my head was Kevin doesn't pivot, right? So like if he's turning, he doesn't turn. Like he can't do that. His whole body has to turn like a Titanic boat in order to face you. Like his feet, his shoulders and hips are always sort of square as he himself turns. But there's no like quick head movements or like rotating along the axis. That's sort of how it happens. So again, that's just where I came from, and so that was what was interesting to me. And sorry, I also like hadn't done a ton of film and television. So for me, it was like, oh, here's a character that I'm creating, and no one sort of like tapping me on the shoulder and being like, hey, this is what you're going to do for the next decade. Like there was not like no one was sort of saying that or doing that. It just was how I approached it.
How many times did you have to audition for The Office? What was the audition process like?
You know what? Actually, for me, was not originally the idea was that it was always going to be, and I was in every episode, but I got in the old like, oh, this is a guy in The Office. This is a guest star role. So my audition process was very quick. I had just moved to town. I had just moved like 3 or 4 months before. And so I was pre-reading with someone in Allison Jones's office who happened to be then the person who I worked with for 10 years, Phyllis Smith, who became Phyllis Lappin Vance on the show. She was a casting associate on the show because the director, she would read with all of us auditioning. And at one point the director was like, well, she's got to be in the show too. Like he just like plucked her out of there. Wow. So yeah, my first audition was sitting in a room, like tiny little office room where I just read with her. And then I met with the producers, and I honestly, it may have just been once. And then they took a bunch of time. The coolest thing was when Carell left, Allison Jones started looking for like mementos to give to him from his casting experience. And she came up to me, never forget, I still have it, came up to me and said, I was looking for some like cool stuff from Steve, but I didn't find anything. But I found this and I thought you might like it. And it was a singular piece of paper it said Kevin at the top, and it said 1, 2, and 3, which were like the 3 finalists. It wasn't like, at that point, who they were evaluating. And it was me, it was Eric Stonestreet, who ended up on Modern Family, and it was Jorge Garcia, who was on Lost and so many other shows on ABC or whatever. So we were the 3. We each just sort of got the right show for us. It wasn't like I was better or someone else was better or worse or whatever. It was like, these are 3 different flavors that would have been totally different with any of us. But yeah,
that's a nice story though. Like, thank God all 3 of you were on big shows, and you were like, and then there was Rick, and he works at Five Guys.
Rick. Yeah, that's true.
And are you close with anybody on the show still?
Oh, all of them. Truly, like we are texting all the time.
Is there an office group chat?
There's an office group chat. Yeah. Yeah. Are you talking about like a group text? Group chat.
Yeah, I had a small part in Oppenheimer, and we have the Oppen homies.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
I think ours is just The Office, but yes, we do. Yes. And then we have subsets of that with just some of us. But it's for me, and people ask about like, who I get along with or who's my favorite or whatever. And we were together a decade, and thankfully we got along. And my relationship with people is just like, it is different, like a family. Like I talk to Jenna Fisher about business. I travel with, and really our families are very close with Oscar Nunez and Angela Kinsey. And then we've had a fantasy football league for 19 years, and John Krasinski and Rainn Wilson and Andy Buckley and myself are in that. And so football season, we're like trash talking each other, and members of the other members of the crew and writers and all of that too. So like, these are my football friends. These are my so that's how we are.
Yeah, we're the good guys, we're not the great guys. We're just so good at